Alright, so let's start with the types of knives that we have. To begin with, we have the paring knife. This is a very small blade. It is not very long, not much longer than your index finger, and is generally used for small cuts that can go and help you make things look pretty, basically. We will not be using this much. Next, we have basically a knife for cutting meat. You notice it is larger than my hand. Long, straight blade, great for cubing meat. We then have the butter knife. It's used for butter, not for cutting. We'll explain why in a little bit. We then have a serrated steak knife used for, well, meats after they've been cooked, as well as for cutting bread. Do not use this for cutting fruits and vegetables that you'll plan on cooking. This is going to be our most common knife, our chef knife. We'll be using this for cutting fruits, vegetables, onions, and most things in our kitchen. Alright, next we will be showing you the correct way of cutting fruit or vegetables. These techniques will be the same all the way. Please notice that when the item is whole and round, I hold either side, very carefully pressing the knife down, making sure to use a sharp blade. This was the sharpest one I had at the time of the shooting. I remove anything I'm not going to be cutting immediately and prepare to cut. Now you need to be careful not to cut your fingers while doing this. So correct holding is essential. Please notice how I am bending over my fingers. This means that if I accidentally cut too close, I am less likely to cut through my finger. It also meanwhile, if I go the other way, I don't want to lose my fingers. Now, this is just a simple slice I'm doing right here. I am choosing to use my finger to help guide the blade. And you see how easy that was to cut. Next, this is a little trick for if you want to do dicing. We'll be using this whenever we cut onions in this class. Unfortunately, this knife was not as sharp as I would have liked for this video. But you'll notice I'm making a horizontal cut, and then I'm about to make some vertical cuts, which let's get the camera into a better position for you to see this. So I make some vertical cuts going down, and once I complete that, which I'll complete for you off screen, we then go and slice them, again using the correct method, and you can see how quickly it comes into small pieces. In fact, we'll get a closer shot of that. There we go. See how easy it's all in little tiny pieces. Great for if you're wanting to mince or dice onion versus the lovely slices we had before. So we'll just get this cleaned up and go on to the main question everybody has. You should never use a dull knife for cutting, and this is how I'm going to show you. Here's a butter knife right here. Now I'm going to use this knife on the scale to show how many ounces of pressure I am going to have to apply in order to cut this apple. I'll be using the same apple half each time. So I'm making sure it's zeroed out, and you see me pressing down. We're at 3, 4, 5, oh, actually we're at 9 pounds of pressure, 10 pounds of pressure, and I erred out. I had to use 10 pounds of force in order to cut through this apple. I didn't even finish cutting it all the way. There we go. So what does this mean? This means that it would take, in order for me to stop, 10 pounds of force to stop myself from cutting. So now let's see how many pounds of force it takes with a sharp knife. So we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pounds of pressure, and I cut through the apple. Easy peasy. So the big question is, why does this make such a big difference? Well, there's a simple reason for that. Following Newton's first law of motion, as I mentioned before, an object in motion stays in motion unless acted upon with a force of equal or opposite power. So basically, if you go and have to use 10 pounds of pressure to cut with a knife, you have to then pull back with that same amount of energy. This is incredibly difficult because when you're using a dull knife, you're using more force, more energy, and it makes it more difficult for you to stop yourself. More people each year actually get hurt going to the hospital by being cut by a dull knife over a sharp knife. simply because since this sharp knife takes so much less force to use, you end up not harming yourself. You end up being able to stop yourself before you cut. Does this mean that no one ever gets hurt with a sharp knife? Of course not. People still get cuts, and sometimes somebody gets a little overzealous and cuts their finger. That's why you have to be careful in the kitchen with the knives. It is also why you will be cutting at a specific cutting station within my class. Thanks everybody for watching, and be ready to answer questions on this in class.